Guitar players are superstitious knuckleheads. I have proof! The tube versus solid state in guitar amps debate is not going away anytime soon. Now, according to conventional wisdom, tubes make amps sound warm, have depth, and produce piano lows, whereas solid state amps are thin, brittle, and lifeless. And for a time, that may or may not have been true. However, after discovering the orange Super Crush 100, that may no longer be the case. I did a test last week, shooting it out in a full mix against some of the best tube amps on the freaking planet. The PV5150, the Soldano SLO 100, and the Rev Generator 120. And we got this. Now, could you tell where the solid state amp was? Because I'm not sure if anybody could tell in the comments. For the most part, we got comments like this.
I can't tell which is a solid state because they're great mixing. Maybe that was what most people is lacking here.
And this.
I just listened in my car while I was driving to work, and at first I didn't even realize there was a difference in the tones. I listened again and noticed slight changes, but I couldn't be frickin' to tell you which is which. They all sounded great in the mix, and that speaks volumes on your behalf. But the bass tone, Jesus fucking Christ, what was that?
That's going to be coming out from Spectre Digital later this year. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you guys will know when that video comes out, because you're definitely not going to want to miss that. And we also got this comment.
I think they all sounded great. Could not tell which was which. Gotta love those piano lows.
Now, this is kind of surprising because we had so many comments in the initial review video about how bad in solid state the orange sounded.
Country on Glenn's channel.
Surely it would have been easy to pick out of a full mix, right? I mean, you remember these comments? Well, what should come as no surprise to absolutely no one is that those geniuses were completely absent from the tubes versus solid state shootout comments. Apparently, they've been busy for the last week and a half, most likely hanging out in a guitar store, waxing poetic to anyone who'll listen about their lust for tube amps and how solid state just can't compare in any way, shape, or form. Because no, they'd never actually lower themselves into participating into some rudimentary YouTube listening test. That would be beneath their greatness. But it wasn't just those guys. The fact that there were absolutely no golden-eared tube snobs picking the orange from the mix should tell you an awful lot about just how well the Super Crush stacks up. And it should tell you even more about the Dunning-Kruger effect and how it applies to tube snobs. I gotta ask, am I the only one who finds it utterly fascinating that the guitar player's superhuman hearing skills completely evaporate once they don't have anything to look at? It's simply incredible once you consider this very simple truth. As long as the guitar player can see what they're listening to, they have the most infallible of opinions. But as soon as they're faced with a blind test, their powers vanish faster than Superman's would after being given an injection of liquid kryptonite. Let's run that test one more time, and we're gonna run it with titles to show you which amp is playing when. And then we're gonna read off a few of the comments from the initial test video because these are hilarious. The excuses and the unwillingness to engage with reality are truly something to behold. Because holding on to a belief despite the evidence is what Superstition is all about.
Most people can tell the difference immediately, and there's still a big noticeable difference no matter how advanced solid state has become. You still can't beat the sound of a tube amp.
Hey, Gawain, I noticed you didn't include any timestamps of when the orange was playing. I wonder why that is.
It all sounds like noise to me. What difference would it make if it was solid state or tubes? Just freaking noise.
Hey, thanks so much for stopping by, Grizzly Adams. Apparently you logged onto a metal production channel and were expecting Grandpa Tone? All right, guitar players, I'm gonna say this very slowly. We play metal guitar tones on a metal channel. Can you say that? I knew you could.
Now, if you want to be scientific about the actual differences between tube, solid state, digital, whatever else, I would argue the best way to go about it is to put sine waves and sweeps through them. As far as I know, and I may be wrong, what differentiates one kind of distortion from another is the different ratios of harmonics that different kinds of distortion produce. For instance, tubes produce a lot of odd order harmonics, but also even order harmonics, but tape produces, I think, exclusively odd order harmonics. Transistors produce both odd and even order harmonics, but even different ratio to tubes, which is why they sound a bit different. Given even order harmonics are octaves of the note that's being pushed, that's why they tend to sound smoother and more melodious than odd order, which tend to sound more harsh, which is why I suspect general people tend to prefer tube distortion. Of course, this is all very nerdy, but I would argue it's a more scientific way of actually evaluating differences between things rather than just relying on people's ears. On the other hand, this is very much getting you listening with your eyes so that you can go too far with bench testing. Perhaps it is better to not worry about it and just go with what sounds good, because that is ultimately all that matters.
Dude, seriously, try to compact your comments down a little bit. Thanks. It just makes the show move a whole lot faster. But you know what? I actually agree with your statement here. Running some sweeps through those amps is going to give us something to measure, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But that's not the point of this video. I wanted to see if the differences in amps are as obvious as the commenters in the initial review video were claiming. And that is clearly not the case. All right, guys, buckle your seatbelts. This next one is extremely long, heavy on the bullshit and light on fact. So I'm just gonna post it here and let you pause the video if you want so you can skim through it. Because I read this and I responded by asking a simple question. So what you're saying is that because I used a digital recorder, the test is invalid? And this is the response I got.
Afraid so, especially while not listening through YouTube, I would dare to say that take a challenge or even trying to guess. While my system is very precise, PS audio gear, which is kicking ass for reproduction. Maybe if you sense PCB recording, but again, we're talking about testing it through DAC of a few K alone, and most of the consumers would not be using that at all. Now, don't get me wrong, I understand we're the minority, but I found it's worth telling these kids it's a bit more complex topic.
Okay, hold on a sec, guys. Do you hear that? That's the sound of moving goalposts. Dude, really? You make some monstrous claims in there, but you don't reference any kind of scientific evidence whatsoever. Stefan, seriously, get the fuck over yourself. People had no problem whatsoever shitting all over the orange in the initial review because they could hear that it was solid state. Now suddenly it's invalid because I used a digital recording? Bull fucking shit. What's really going on here is that because the visual is gone, you can't tell where the changes are. And you can't acknowledge that we tend to listen with our eyes. And I mean, all of us do it. It's part of human nature. Scientific American has a great article on it. Our senses work together to process the world around us. And when we take away one of those senses, in this case sight, suddenly it turns out that the sense we thought was far more developed, in this case our hearing, isn't.
The difference has to be experienced live in the same room in order to understand tube amps' rich dynamic, superior presence with super fat bad boy superior lushness of sound in compared to the solid state bigoted word. The drum sounded cool and the bass line was fantastic, but that skinny sawing, squeaky, typical orange sounding crap was definitely there.
Oh, okay, I get it. We suddenly went from that amp sounds like solid state garbage to, oh, you've got to be in the room to experience it. So I guess by that logic, the orange would be great for studio recording because you obviously couldn't pick it out of the mix. You know, I could say something really witty in response here, but I think this next guy has got even something better to say.
Back in the days, people listened with their eyes. Now, they feel with their ears.
That's because people need to justify their very expensive purchase. Suddenly, I could tell that's a horrible solid-state amp. In the initial video we did at Gear Street, it's become all about how the amp feels. And that's the great thing about feel, because you don't actually have to back it up with any sort of evidence because you can just claim that your experience is unique, and that's the end of it. It's just like plugging your ears and running away when confronted with a horrible truth, like this brave patriot did. But then again, I'd recommend if you really want that genuine tube feel, you probably get better results by jamming one up your ass. And speaking of tubes versus solid state, here's some absolutely amazing wisdom.
Guitarists, tubes are the only way to get real overdrive. Also a guitarist spends $8,000 on a solid-state Klon overdrive pedal.
Once again, superstition is what drives the mind of many a musician. The idea of paying $8,000 for a freaking pedal just boggles my mind. Yeah, like it's gonna be any better than all the other overdrive pedals out there or have some unique properties. Seriously, guys, don't be so fucking gullible. You know, the only conclusion I can make from any of this debate is one simple thing. If guitar players stopped talking about their gear, their brains might start working. And then they'd figure out that they should probably be working on their songwriting skills. And given the complete lack of great songs coming out these days, I'm guessing that guitar players are still talking way too much. But hey, all praise the mighty tube, bringer of warm, rounded tones, slayer of brittleness. Just make sure you're standing in the same room as one so you can bask in its all analog gloriousness.